Welcome back to CS196. So let's go ahead and start off by talking about what we've done thus far in the course. We're almost at the midpoint. We have our midterm presentations on Thursday. You guys are going to tell us all about what you guys did with your projects. But these are basically some of the things that we've done thus far. We've talked about some developer tools. So we went over Bash, Git, tips and tricks for debugging, how to Google properly. Then we went over some more CS Center topics, so all the things listed there. And then we've had a little bit of this sort of professional development series where you guys are working on your projects independently with your project managers, kind of separate from the course. But we're going to have a lecture today on how to get an internship. So today's lecture is going to be a little more laid back. It's the week right before spring break, so no Rust material or anything. We'll do some professional development today, and maybe some more later down the line if time permits. So today is, how do we get an internship? I want an internship super badly. How can I do it? And if I don't have an internship and I don't want one, why should I want one? Well, the first reasons why you should want an internship is because of the experience. When you have an internship, it'll help you get other jobs, and it'll also help you get other internships. It looks very good on a resume. The knowledge. You will learn a lot from these internships. You will learn things that you will never learn in school, things that are in industry, things that are basically completely separate from a computer science degree. Money. This is what we all care about. Internships pay very well. So if you want to pay off tuition, want to pay off rent, let's say you're soaking up some debt because you're a student here and you don't have any financial aid, internships are tremendously beneficial to work towards that. Why? They pay anywhere between like $20 an hour to like even as high as $70 an hour. So internships, they bring in a lot of money for college students. And also, this is the most important part of why you should want an internship. Not many people think about this. This is why we have internships, return offers. Companies have internships not just to, have some fun and give you some experience for free. They want to get something out of it. They want to hire you full-time in the future if they can keep you, as long as you do well in your internship, of course. So this will make getting full-time offers tremendously easy when senior year comes around. So who am I? I've been teaching this class for about 8 weeks now, and I haven't really introduced myself. Why do I have the credibility to talk about how you should go about getting an internship? So a little bit about me. I'm a computer science and linguistics major here. I'm a sophomore. I've been interning at Country Financial in Research Park since May of 2019. And if you've done the math, yes, this was a freshman internship. Yes, getting internships after freshman year is possible. And we're going to talk about that today. This summer, I'll be at Capital One in Richmond, Virginia, also for software engineering. And I've been involved with this class since January of 2019. I started off as a project manager, and this is my first semester as a lead with that guy over there. So who was I coming into this university? Was I like a legend? Was I a coding god? Not at all. I was a small-brained high schooler. I still kind of am. And I just knew that I really liked this whole public speaking thing. I had basically zero coding experience, and I logged into the College Board for the first time yesterday to get this screenshot for you. I actually haven't really told anyone this ever. I got a 1 on the AP Computer Science exam. Now, listen, give me some slack. My teacher was really bad. I'm pretty sure like everyone in the class got a 1. But this is who I was coming into the school. I was terrified. CS at Illinois, this super big buzzword, this super tough program apparently. I was super scared because of that right there. So am I doing this to humble brag? Not at all. Why am I saying this? I just want to take this as an opportunity to like dispel all of these notions that you need to be coding since the day you come out of the womb in order to succeed professionally and get an internship. That's not at all the case. What does it take? It takes time, it takes some element of luck, and it takes a lot of hard work. It doesn't take some sort of natural talent. It doesn't take, being a god or something. It takes hard work. So I think that being, the instructor for this class, talking to a lot of freshmen, I think I have some responsibility in making sure that the future of CS in Illinois doesn't turn into some like elitist, super annoying group of people. This is just the truth. So it's nice to get to know me a little bit more. Why do you guys care? Let's talk about how you should get an internship. So the prerequisite for this is step 0. do not compare yourself to others. Why should you not compare yourself to others? Well, again, this is CS at Illinois. There will be a point in your college career where you know someone who's at Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, whatever it is. Put your hand into the bucket of Fortune 100 companies, you will find someone that's working there. There will be a point where it seems like everyone is getting an internship around you, and you're sitting there with nothing to show for it. It's going to be extremely discouraging if you compare yourself to other people. Do not do this. Everyone is capable of getting an internship. Do not try to compare yourself to other people. It's very unhealthy, and let's take a look at two sides of the coin here. So let's say you compare yourself to other people, and you feel like you're behind others. You don't feel like you're ahead of the curve at all. If you do this and you compare yourself to other people, when you put some people on pedestals, you'll find that you will end up being unnecessarily hard on yourself. You'll find that you won't be able to accomplish the same things, and you're going to want to beat yourself up. Very unhelpful, very discouraging. And also, it'll limit what your capabilities are. If you put people on a pedestal, suddenly you will accomplish what those people have accomplished, and you'll think that that's it, that's game over. That's not at all the case. You might be capable of doing much more. So, even if you feel behind, don't bother comparing yourself to other people. Do you feel ahead of others? Let's say that you're, the opposite. Let's say you feel like you're ahead of the curve. Well, if you compare yourself to other people, suddenly you feel comfortable. No need to work hard, no need to grow, no need to learn. This is not good either. This is not how growth is created. No matter where you are on the spectrum, you shouldn't compare yourself to others. Rather, just contribute to the culture that we have here at this school. Contribute to the culture of collaboration, not competition. Learn from each other, support each other, and put yourself on your own scale. Compare yourself relative to what you know you are capable of doing. It is very bad to compare yourself to other people. So, you are an average of the people that you're around, and this is why coming to this school is so good. You're going to be surrounded by people who are very, very smart, very, very successful, and they want to see you succeed. So if you're around people that are doing the opposite, the other way around, well, quite frankly, get those people out of your life. You want to surround yourself by the people that want to see you succeed. And you will find that this will treat you very well. Anyway, so thank you, Sammy, for all this confidence. Thank you for this little pep talk. I don't see my internship anywhere. How do I actually do this? So that's all the prerequisite knowledge on how you should get an internship. How do you actually go about getting one yourself? So first, let's outline the process. What does a typical CS internship interview process look like? So this means, interviews for things like software engineering, data science, whatever it may be. This is kind of a general outline of what companies usually follow, more or less. So you got the interview. Congratulations. Usually the first step is a coding challenge. It'll be like an online assessment, and it won't be proctored. It'll just be like a couple problems. You have to do it, and you make it to the next round. The next round is usually a behavioral interview, where they ask you very simple behavioral questions, the same kind of questions that you'll see for other jobs. Tell me about a time when you did this, or why do you want to work for this company? You pass that, then you get the infamous technical interview. They'll give you some coding problems similar to what you saw in the coding challenge, except this time you're actually interviewed by someone. So you'll actually be talking to someone and explaining your thought process throughout. Let's say you pass that, then you'll have the final round interview. Some companies will fly you out. Some companies will do this purely remote. It depends on the company, and this is a combination of behavioral and technical interviews. And then finally, you get the offer, and you celebrate. So let's break this down. What is the first step of the getting an internship process? Well, first you need to get the interview. So what are a few ways of getting the interview? I have this little progress bar at the bottom. We are currently all the way on the left here. How can we actually get into the pipeline? Well, here are a few ways. The first way, very simple. Just apply online. Take your resume and apply it to as many companies as you can. Just spam everywhere. A lot of these companies ask the same exact things in their application. In fact, you will maybe even be able to find some plugins that apply for you automatically and fill out the forms. And so this is one way to go about doing this. Another way is referrals. You all have friends, you all know people in certain companies, and you go to this school, you know people that probably have gone to the school that want to help you out, and they can refer you to certain companies. This will get you in the door. Finally, or actually third, there is the career fair. We have 2 engineering career fairs during the school year, one in the fall, one in the spring, and we also have various after-hour events, they call them, which are more laid-back career fairs that we have at Siebel and ECE. And finally, cold emailing recruiters. There will be more on this in a little bit, but let's go ahead and break it down even further. So we said the first step, or the first option of getting your foot in the door, getting into this pipeline, is just simply applying online. So again, spam like crazy. This is an option. So usually when we talk about applying online, people ask me about like cover letters. Honestly, I don't know. I can tell you what I do. I've personally stopped bothering with cover letters. There's a lot of conflicting opinions on cover letters. Usually, one perspective is that like a cover letter will differentiate you from other candidates. My opinion, it's too much time. And if you try to like abstract away company, specifics and try to just write this general cover letter that will work for any company, and you just like replace the company name, usually it's really obvious that you did that, and there's like no point in writing it at all. That's my opinion. Again, do as you wish with this part because it's a little controversial of what you should do with cover letters. So the other option that we talked about is referrals. This is by far the most powerful way of getting the interview. Again, it's just basically a way of getting someone in the company to vouch for you, basically saying you don't need to worry too much about this person's experience or resume. I can tell you firsthand that this person knows what he's doing, he knows his stuff, and if you hire him, you won't have any problems. So this is a great way of getting your foot in the door. So what should you do? Ask your friends that you know have worked at certain companies. Ask various connections that you might have built, whether you went to hackathons or recruiting events or whatever it was. Make a LinkedIn. I've had people reach out to me over LinkedIn. I've reached out to certain people on LinkedIn basically saying, hey, I see that you worked at this company. I see that you've done X, Y, Z. Try to befriend them. Try to end up getting a referral from them. But again, don't just talk to them only for the referral. Try to make it seem like, there's more to what you're talking about. So here's a little demo of how powerful referrals are. So this is one of the offers that I got freshman year at AbbVie. And in the spring semester, I took a linguistics class, and I just talked to my teacher through email. And after the semester, and I basically said, hey, I'm interested in learning more about computational linguistics. Do you have any tips? I feel like the CS linguistics curriculum doesn't have much computational linguistics early on, so I want to see if I'm really interested in this stuff. So I, sent him a very honest email. And he said, sounds good. You want me to take you out to lunch? My treat. By the way, do you want a job? And I looked at the email and had to sit back in my chair for a second, but this shows how powerful referrals are. Usually, the referrals don't lead to jobs just like that. Usually, it leads to getting your foot in the door and getting an interview. In this case, clearly he had some sort of standing in the company to just be able to vouch for me and say, if you want to hire him, I can say he's good, right? I ended up not taking this offer because I had already accepted another offer. If I didn't, I probably would have taken it. But this just shows how powerful these referrals can be. Career fairs. So this is another way of getting the interview. I promise you, career fairs do work. I used to think that they don't, and I've actually never had any success out of the career fair. But I do know a lot of people who have gotten interviews, who have gotten full-time jobs, internships, whatever it is, from the career fair. Here are some tips that I have for you when it comes to the career fair. Make sure you check the companies that are attending on Handshake and make a comprehensive plan of who you will see. If you wait until the career fair to figure out who you're going to talk to at the career fair, you are going to really, really regret it because you're going to go in there, you're going to see hundreds of booths, and honestly, you might even end up just going home. You'll find that the lines are super long, and if you don't have a plan, it's going to turn out to be a disaster, very likely. Go early, go as early as you can. These career fairs can get super, super crowded. The lines can get as long as an hour and a half wait. Talk to the companies that you're interested in. Try to go for the smaller lines, especially if you're a freshman or sophomore. there's really not any point in standing in the Google line, even though everyone loves doing that. Have a quick pitch. Don't walk up to a recruiter and just like stare at them awkwardly, or walk up to a recruiter and say hi. Just have a very quick pitch. Walk up to the recruiter confidently and just like say your name, your major. Hi, I'm Sammy. I'm a computer science major. These are the places I've worked at. These are the projects that I've done. This is why I'm interested in working for you. Just have a quick little pitch, 30, 40 seconds. Don't spend too much time on this. So that way you can actually spark a conversation with the recruiter and show that you're interested in his company, his or her company. So here is what I think the final tactic of trying to get the interview in the first place is. And so this is cold emailing recruiters. This is kind of like a last resort tactic. You basically just send emails to recruiters talking about your experience, and there are some templates that you can follow online. Don't expect a response from this. It's kind of like desperate, which is okay, because you are desperate, but don't like email 10 recruiters expecting to get 10 responses. Email 10 recruiters expecting 0 responses, maybe 1 if you're lucky, right? And so here's another little demo. This is actually the email that I sent to get my very first internship. I just basically said, I'm a student. This is a project that I did. And actually, this is a project that I did in this class when I took it in the fall. It was the project that I worked on all semester. I talked a little bit about it, a little bit of the stuff that I've learned in the classes here. And I said, I'd love to work for your company. Would you like to talk? And this is how I got the interview for this internship, which ended up turning into an offer. Sometimes it's just this simple. This isn't a rare occurrence. I know people who have just like emailed a recruiter at YouTube, for example, a bigger company, and just said, this is my experience. I'd love to work for you. And then boom, got an interview and turned it into an offer. Don't expect to get offers off of this, but it is a tactic that you should know about because it's definitely a way of getting interviews. So let's say you got the interview, and now you are in the coding challenge phase. So not every company does coding challenges, but a very vast majority of them do. What is a coding challenge? It's basically just a way of weeding out people because interviewing people does cost money. You have to pay the interviewers. You have to pay the recruiters. If they're flying you out, you have to pay for your flights, your hotel, your food, whatever it is. It takes money, it takes time, it takes resources. So they give these coding challenges to try to weed you out and basically say, if you're not capable of doing this, then we don't even want to bother with you. So they're basically like 1 to 3 coding problems, usually unproctored, and they're on a platform like HackerRank, or you're definitely all familiar with PrairieLearn, just basically like a small contained environment with a problem that you can submit. We'll have more on what kind of questions they like asking a little bit later when we talk about the technical interview. So let's say you pass this coding challenge. Now you're in the behavioral interview phase. What is the behavioral interview? Employers use this to evaluate you based on your past experience to understand the way that you can react in various job-related situations. So this leads me to step 2. Don't fail the behavioral interview. I am under the opinion that you should never fail in a behavioral interview. Why is that? The questions don't really ever change. They're basically all the same, sometimes different variations, but if you just do a quick Google search, you will find basically the extent of what you would be asked in a behavioral interview. Tell me about a time when you did this. Why do you want to work for this company? Things related to that, right? And they're also very easy to prepare for. And that's what we'll talk about right now. So how do you prepare for a behavioral interview? Well, again, there are very, very common questions that you should prepare responses for. If you don't have a response for the tell me about yourself question, then the interviewer is not going to be very happy with you. I've actually done behavioral interviews myself where I said, tell me about yourself. And the response wasn't about themselves, it was, what do you mean by that? Well, I think it's very clear what I mean by that. And if you do another interview, you will have that question likely right at the beginning. So prepare responses to these questions that you know you will be asked. And then, more importantly, try to have a general outline of questions that you will be asked about your projects. Because in these behavioral interviews, they really like asking questions related to projects. So what are these questions related to? Well, they're related to challenges that you faced in the project. mistakes that you think you've made. What did you enjoy about the project? What are some examples of when you took leadership, if you did? Team conflict. How did it resolve? How did you handle it? What did you do to resolve it? And what would you do differently? Basically, just get like 3 of your projects, and if you don't have 3 projects to talk about, all of the projects that you've done, whether it's 1 or 2, and just draw out like a chart where you fill out all of these requirements that I've put up here, and just be prepared in this way. If they ask you a question related to, like, tell me about a time when you had a conflict with a team member, you're able to respond by just basically pulling out of this mental chart that you've created. And finally, make sure you understand your project. Be able to talk about the technical trade-offs. They will ask you questions about your project, and they want to hear what you think about certain things. Don't sound clueless. Try to understand the project as well as you can, even if you didn't work on all aspects of the project. So here are some tips and tricks for the behavioral interview. Speak with confidence. If I stood up here and it was like whispering in the microphone or something, you guys would not want to listen to me at all. I hope you do want to listen to me. But if I were to not do this, I think none of you would want to listen to a single word that I'm saying. It's the same thing with interviewers. If you're like mumbling and you're stumbling over your words, questioning everything that you're saying, they don't want to hear it. And also, like, if you're questioning what you're saying, they're going to question what you're saying. So even if you're not entirely sure about something, just speak with confidence. And like, humans are dumb. They probably will just assume you're correct. Confidence kind of overrules everything. I shouldn't be saying this because these are some things that I do in this lecture. Talk about what you did, not about what your team did. They're not hiring the team. They are hiring you. So talk about what you did to contribute to the project. If you talk about what the team did, they're going to be suspicious that you did nothing. Make sure you talk about what you did. And also, sometimes you will have to talk about what the team did as a whole, but the focus is on you. Also, don't be arrogant. What do I mean by this? Well, don't be humble either, but make sure that when you talk about your accomplishments, you feel free to brag, because this is the time to brag, the behavioral interview. But don't go on about arrogant things like, yeah, I did all the hard parts of the project, or whatever it may be. Just be specific about what you did. Brag by showing the impressive work that you contributed to the project with. Don't brag by being like an arrogant person that they just don't want to even hire, because arrogance is a huge red flag. If they see that you're arrogant in the interview, they likely will just not hire you off of that alone. They want to hire people that they want to work with. So that leads to this next point. Actually, firstly, let me cover this, the STAR structure. So when they ask you questions, use this structure of STAR. So situation, task, action, and result. This is really, really important. Some interviewers actually grade you on how well you use the STAR structure. Some interviewers don't really think about it, but if you use this structure, it'll make sure you actually answer the question. So what do I mean by situation, task, and result? Let's say you get a question that's something along the lines of, tell me about one of your projects. That's all they ask. Well, you say, let's say I worked on a project at this company that I interned for, a summer ago. We were tasked with being able to speed up the performance of our backend service. So in order for me to do this, we re-platformed from one framework to another, and we improved response times by 80%. So that perfectly answers the question. Obviously, I don't want to go on for minutes up here, but this follows that structure. And as long as you're following the structure, you will make sure that you respond to the interviewer in the way that they want, and you'll actually answer their questions. And also, make sure you ask questions. Talk to the interviewer like they are a human, because I promise you, they are humans. At least, I think they still are. There are some companies that are doing like video-graded interviews. That's really weird. Most of the time, I think 99% of the time, they will be a human. So don't be super stiff. Throw in some jokes if you think it's appropriate. Talk to them like they are a human. Research the company beforehand. If you have information of who your interviewer is, research who your interviewer is on like LinkedIn or whatever it may be, because they really like to see that. It shows interest in the company, and if you, for example, don't research what a company does in the first place, and they ask you that in the interview and you can't answer, you're not going to get the job. That is like a super bad look. And I promise you, people have done this. So what kind of questions are good? Well, there's like 3 different types of questions that you can ask. There are like the curiosity questions, where you ask about the day-to-day life at the company, or certain technology stacks that they use. Whatever it may be, these are fine questions to ask. Feel free to ask them. There's questions that you can ask that stem off of your research. You can say, I see that you use the Angular framework in your technology stack. Why did you guys choose to use the Angular framework over the React library, for example? These are fine questions to ask, and they will see that you've done your research and that you actually care about the company. You can ask about like the questions that you have within the disciplines that you're interested in. You can say, I'm especially interested in natural language processing. What kind of projects have you guys done as a company that are in these disciplines? And they will answer, well, we either have done none or we've done plenty. But that shows that you're interested in doing the work that you're passionate about for the company that you're interviewing for. So prepare the questions beforehand, or just think of them on the spot, whatever it may be. Just make sure that when they ask you at the very end of the interview, any questions, you don't just stand up there or in the interview and say like, no, that's fine, have a nice day or something. That's a terrible look. Make sure you have some questions at the end. And finally, show that you are coachable. This is an internship. You are there to learn. So prove that you are coachable in whatever way you can. So whether it's, you're talking about your CS196 project, where you started off the semester with no idea of how to do anything, but you were able to accomplish what you wanted to do through, self-sufficient Googling, or asking more experienced people on the team, or asking your project manager, or core staff, or whatever it may be, it is a very good look to show that you are coachable. And they are looking for that. Because if you are not coachable, and you're this arrogant, heads-down coder, they don't want to hire you. In the real world, you're not, headphones on, hoodie on, dark room coding. You are working with other people. You are talking to other people. So they want to see that you're able to collaborate. So that's really all there is to the behavioral interview. You will get better at them with time. So let's go ahead and say you passed this behavioral interview, and now you're at the infamous technical interview. What is the technical interview? Well, at this stage, you're interviewed by a technical member of the company. So usually like a senior software engineer or someone who's been in the company for a very long time, and they've prepared a question for you to answer. So the problem is usually 1, 2, or 3 problems, and you need to do your best to solve this problem efficiently and correctly while explaining what your thoughts and decisions are throughout. So you will never get over the preparation for these technical interviews. Everyone has to continue preparing for them. What kind of problems are we talking about? Well, LeetCode.com is an excellent database of problems that have been asked before in these real-life interviews, in regards to the technical interview, not behavioral. So let's look at some examples. So this is an example of more of an easier problem. You have to simply reverse a string. So this is a nice problem that they're asking to be solved algorithmically, because obviously certain programming languages have reverse libraries inside of them. They want to see what your thought process is to reverse this string. So this is a problem that demonstrates that there are very, very simple ways to go about doing it, but they are a bit inefficient. But there is plenty of room to improve and have a nice, brilliant solution that reverses the string just as well as the other solutions are, but the solution that you'd like is the most efficient one possible. So this is what's considered to be like an easy problem. This would be considered to be what's a medium problem. I just screenshotted these from LeetCode. You can find them on there. So a medium problem, you're given a graph, and you need to find the cheapest flights within k steps. So you can see that this is a bit more involved and a little bit more scary, especially if you haven't taken classes like CS225 yet. A hard problem, so you're given a 2D array, and it's filled with zeros and ones, and you need to find the largest rectangle containing only ones and return its area. So this is a very difficult problem, and you'll see why once you take CS225 and learn some searching algorithms, but it seems really stupid. Doesn't look like any of this work is something you would do day to day in the job. So why are they asking it? Why are they interviewing you like this? I will not be the last person to tell you this, but technical interviewing is a skill that is independent, mostly independent of software engineering. And you can get better at it through practice and repetition. So it's kind of like, don't hate the player, hate the game, right? This is something that you just have to do. Don't complain too much about the process. Just focus on getting better, because the process to getting an internship is fairly straightforward. We know exactly what we have to do. You just have to get better at these problems. So try not to complain too much about it. It doesn't really relate too much to what you'll do day to day on the job, but for now it's about the best they could do. So how do you get good at these interview problems? They seem really difficult. So the first step that I would say is get comfortable with the language that you will use during the interviews. You can use whatever programming language you want, as long as it's not like super obscure or something. So I personally prefer higher level languages like Python. But again, you can use whatever you're most comfortable with, and you should use whatever you're most comfortable with. I personally prefer languages like Python because, I remember once I interviewed for a company, and the question was something related to sending out invitations to certain people based on, some amount of metadata. And one piece of metadata was like the available dates that they can come and the dates of the events. So a part of this problem, this wasn't the whole problem, was being able to figure out if certain dates come before certain dates. So that in and of itself could be an interview problem. But thanks to this super high-level language Python, I could just take date string number 1 and date string number 2 and just use the less than symbol, because Python is beautiful. If I had to write this in a lower-level language, it would probably take some more time. That could really be an interview question in and of itself. But that wasn't the task that I had to do. But again, use whatever you're most comfortable with. Java is a fine language. People use C++, whatever it is. So the most important part is to practice. Practice, practice, practice. LeetCode.com. You will revisit LeetCode for really the rest of your CS career, as long as you're hunting for jobs or internships. LeetCode.com. And as you do more questions, you will eventually develop pattern recognition. You'll find that there are certain questions that are similar to something you've seen in the past. You'll find that you won't be able to solve certain questions right away. That's fine. Give it a try. If you aren't able to do it, look at the solution. Try to re-implement the solution without looking at the solution. Move on to another problem. And just keep on really doing this process, and you'll find that you will develop pattern recognition. And so here are some classes that we have at the University of Illinois that will give you some of the foundational knowledge that you need for these technical interview problems. So there's CS225, which is data structures, CS374, which is the theoretical algorithms class, and even CS241, which is systems programming, might help you with certain interviews. Don't get me wrong, you don't need these classes to succeed in these interviews. I personally, out of these classes, have only completed CS225. So you don't exactly need these 3 classes to get started on practicing for interviews. They're just very helpful with the foundational knowledge. And finally, do not give up. I promise you that it'll take some time to wrap your head around these technical interview problems. But the point that I'm trying to make here is problems that have stumped you in the beginning. I can name so many problems that when I was a freshman and I looked at them, it looked impossible. And then I looked at the solution and I thought whoever wrote the solution was a genius. And nowadays, I look back at those problems and I'm able to see the solution within like 2 seconds. And it is now trivial. Why? Because you just have to keep on persisting. You have to keep on trying new problems. Even if something looks hard at first, just give it some time and you'll find that that problem that stumped you at first is something that is now trivial a couple months later. So do not give up, no matter how hard it may seem. You will get better, I promise. So here's a general approach to these technical interview problems. First step, understand what the hell the problem is trying to say. Sometimes this can take quite a bit of time. Some problems are super dense with the specification. Some problems just might seem like they make no sense at first. Some problems are fairly easy to understand. For example, reversing a string, I could tell you that without any description and you'd understand how to do it. But other problems, such as the graph one, you actually need to read it maybe once or twice to understand what it's saying. So I would say that's the first step. Then after that, try some examples. Put in some inputs, see how you would work through it manually, and this might trigger your pattern recognition right away. If it doesn't, at the very least, it helps you understand the problem more. You can identify some edge cases that you might need to consider when you write your algorithm for this problem, whatever it may be. After that, think of a brute force solution. This is usually the inefficient, bad solution, some might say. And this is usually the solution that you can kind of think about even if you knew nothing about programming. You can kind of just figure out like a basic algorithm that would solve the problem. But usually these interviewers want to see you do better, especially for the easier problems. Try to develop a better algorithm. If you see that you're computing something that you can reuse later on, maybe you can store it and reuse these values rather than computing it over and over again. Do you have 3 for loops rather than just 1? There are so many improvements that you can make to your brute force solution to later on develop an efficient algorithm. After you have an idea, I personally like to establish my idea first and then start programming it. There are times where I would try programming without having an idea of what my algorithm is, and that just crashes horribly because you're like coding without your head. Once you've coded what your idea was, give it some tests. Some websites have automatic test cases. Some websites, you'll just need to test it manually. Whatever it may be, see if what you did actually works. And then finally, analyze it. So in CS125 or whatever classes you might be taking, you will learn Big O runtime, which is just basically a way of managing or analyzing the speed and time efficiency for your algorithm that you wrote. So I guess like once you guys learn that, just revisit this. But these are the general approach that you should have, in my opinion, to these problems. You will find that eventually you develop your own kind of strategy, but I think it's helpful to keep this framework in mind. So here are some tips and tricks that I have for the technical interview. The first tip is try not to stay quiet. Think out loud. They want to hear your thoughts. This is the whole point of the technical interview process. While it may not seem like it's something that you're doing day to day on the job, it's still something that kind of shows how you think through a problem, how you're able to start off something that you know nothing about and kind of work your way through it, reason through it, and eventually have a solution. The interviewers are there to help you, so ask them clarifying questions. They can maybe even give hints. Don't get me wrong, some interviewers are really mean and won't help you at all, but this is actually the minority. The majority of interviewers are there to see you succeed. They want to help you. They want to see you get a solution to the problem. So don't be afraid to ask them questions about things that you're not sure about, and listen to the things that they're telling you. Because again, sometimes they want to lead you in the right direction or lead you away from the wrong direction. So think of this as a simulation of what it would be working on the job. As I said earlier, they want to see that you're coachable. On the real job, you're not headphones in, hoodie on, darkroom coding. You're in an office, you're working with other people on large-scale projects, and they want to see that you're capable of working with other people to solve problems. And it's also really important to mention that you do not need to be perfect depending on what the problem is. So don't get me wrong, if the problem is super trivial, if you're not able to solve it perfectly, you're probably out of luck. But there are some times where they will give a very difficult problem on purpose just to kind of see what your thought process is and see how close you get to the ideal solution. So don't approach the problem trying to get absolute perfection from the first try. Or if you leave the interview and you don't get the absolute perfect solution, you think that you failed. My opinion is that you should just do your absolute best. No matter what it may be, if you solve the problem perfectly on your first try, you didn't even think about a brute force solution, that's great, fantastic. If you just barely struggle to get the ideal solution in the final stretch, awesome, no problem. If you were only able to kind of give a solution that just barely sort of works, that's sometimes fine too. It really depends on the problem. Some problems are super hard. Just don't really worry too much about that. Just kind of worry more about, doing your absolute best. Don't give up in the middle of the problem. Honestly, you'd be surprised at how well you actually need to do to pass these technical interviews. So, you've passed the coding challenge, the behavioral interview, the technical interview. Now you're in the final round. So what does this consist of? Usually the final round consists of basically everything you've done already. Behavioral interviews, coding challenges, or rather technical interviews, whatever it may be. Sometimes you'll have to get lunch with a current employee. There's many different things that they do. Some companies will fly you out. They'll treat you like absolute royalty. They'll put you in an awesome hotel room. This is what Capital One did for me, and I absolutely loved it. And then there are other companies that will just do it over Skype. This doesn't really say much about the company. I know for a fact that Amazon and Google, I'm pretty sure they actually don't do on-site interviews at all. They just do remote interviews from start to end. Both great companies, but this is just how they do these final rounds. And also, sometimes these technical interviews will be over Whiteboard. If you have an on-site interview and you have a technical interview, you can almost certainly expect that the technical interview that they ask will be written on a whiteboard. So what does this mean? You won't have a compiler, you won't have syntax highlighting, you won't have syntax errors, you won't have test cases. So you need to be neat with your handwriting, you need to kind of walk your interviewer through your thought process. At the end, you need to actually prove that your solution works, or maybe kind of works. You have to use your own test cases. Whatever it may be, just realize that the whiteboard is not your computer. So this is actually a skill in and of its own that you might want to practice if you know that you're going to have a whiteboarding interview. So that's basically everything. Let's say you made it through the entire process, and now you're all the way at the end. You got the offer. Time to celebrate. You made it through the whole process. Congratulations. So if you accept, you are now locked in. So if you accept the offer, you will work there for the time period that's on the contract. That is if you don't renege. So what is reneging? It's basically saying that I've accepted the offer, but I've also accepted an offer from another company. There are a lot of stories about reneging, and I'm pretty sure legal, but it's a bad look. There are some stories of people who have reneged companies, and they were blacklisted from that company forever. There are stories of people who reneged companies, and their university was blacklisted forever. There are stories of people who reneged companies, and literally nothing happened. So my advice is just don't renege. Instead, what you should do is this. If you're in the process for other places, you can use this offer now as leverage, either to get more time to decide from the company that you got the offer from, or you can use it to speed up your other interviews. So let's say company A gave you an offer, and you're still in the pipeline for company B. Make sure that you just say to company B, hey, I have an offer. It's going to expire in 2 weeks. Can we speed up my interview process, please? If I get you guys, I will consider you as a company that I'll accept. And they will comply. They will make sure that they speed up your process almost always. So don't accept the offer from the company that gave you the offer and then just renege them if you get the offer that you'd like. Instead, use it as leverage. Stay humble, please. If you get a job at Google or something, don't go around and be an asshole. Just stay humble. Let's talk about what I haven't talked about all lecture. Getting rejected. Sammy, I got rejected. Sad face, sad face, sad face. Here's the thing about rejection. It's normal. It happens. Rejection is normal. You should accept rejection. You should get used to rejection. It's going to happen a lot. Rejection is a part of the process. Put this in your head. Ingrain it in your memory. Keep it in mind forever. So I would estimate that personally, for me, since freshman year, I'm at the end of my sophomore year now, I've been rejected from internships, I think 250 times, give or take. And out of those rejections, I've only had 4 offers to show for them. So this is usually the side of things that people don't talk about. If you're always scrolling through LinkedIn on your feed or something, you'll see, offer from Facebook, offer from Google. You walk through the halls of Siebel, oh, I got an offer from Citadel, or whatever it may be. Nobody really talks about how often they get rejected. But behind every single one of these acceptances, behind every single one of these offers that people get, I can almost certainly assure you that behind every single one of those offers is 100 to 200 rejections, because that's just how it works. But that's the beauty of this field. I promise you that not many other majors and disciplines can walk into the career fair and just see their major plastered in every single booth. This is why we are blessed in this field. Computer science is booming right now, so take advantage of it. If you get rejected 200 times, that's fine. There are so many other companies that you can work for. So keep on trying. The opportunity will come, I promise. And here's a little bonus. So if you've gotten rejected and it wasn't a no-reply email, a little bit of a nugget is that you are now in touch with a recruiter, probably. So be respectful. Just thank them for the opportunity. And if you're not a junior or something, say that you'd like to stay in touch. I know a lot of people who have actually they were respectful to the recruiter that rejected them, and 1 year later, they got the offer from that company. Because one, just because you got rejected from a company doesn't mean you're blacklisted from them forever. You can apply basically every year. And also, it just shows a lot of respect. If you show this kind of discipline, being able to say, thank you for the opportunity. I know that this year wasn't my best, but I'd love to give it another try next year. The recruiter will very likely say, great, I will gladly stay in touch with you, and you have another shot next year. So here are the different types of rejections. The first one is probably the most common one, resume rejections. You get rejected because you're a freshman and your graduation date was too early, or too late rather. You get rejected after an interview. Let's say they didn't like the solution that you gave in the technical interview. Whatever it is. Let's say you get ghosted. So if you just don't hear back after a few weeks, you should probably assume that you're rejected. And the last one is the one that I didn't actually really know about until probably this year. Spots can fill up. These internship programs are not unlimited. Believe it or not, there are caps on how many people they can hire. So what does that mean? Well, one is that this lecture is kind of tough on you guys because we're pretty late into the spring. And the peak recruiting season is in the fall. So you can look at it in two different ways. One, you're super late and you need to hustle, which is fine. I actually didn't get one of my offers freshman year until about 2 weeks before school ended. Or you can look at this as, well, I know now when the peak time is, so I'm actually quite early. When the fall comes, you know exactly what you need to do, and you approach recruiting in the way that we talked about today. You can look at it in one of the two ways. Whatever it is, I think that these tips go a very long way, no matter what time of the year it is. And even if you're trying to get an internship now, definitely don't give up. There are still spots open, just significantly less from the fall. So here are some things that you should know about. First thing is freshman and sophomore internship programs. Google STEP, Facebook University, Microsoft Explore, all of these are companies that have programs dedicated to underrepresented minorities, people without that much experience, whatever it may be. Definitely just throw an application at them. Research Park, you should know about this. On campus, slightly off campus, we have Research Park, which is basically just an area with a bunch of companies ranging from like Capital One to Jump Trading to Yahoo or Verizon Media, whatever it may be. When you apply to these jobs, you are only competing against people that go to the school. And they usually actually don't ask technical questions, which is really great, especially if you're a freshman, because some of the technical interviews can get kind of hard. And also, there are more than just summer internships. So if you have a semester to blow, you can take an internship in the spring. You can take one in the fall, or do what I did, which is basically work while you're in school. I've been working in Research Park for last semester and this semester while I've been a student here. So here's some miscellaneous resume tips. Put your GPA if it's above 3. Put your end date rather than the start date. So if you are a freshman technically, but you're graduating a year early, put that you graduate a year early. That will benefit you. You don't have any experience? Get experience. How can you do that? Projects. Hackathons. This class. I promise you, this class is super beneficial. Why? I can say so myself. I got my first internship just off the project I did in this class. And finally, if you can get research, if you're interested in research, that also looks good as well. So, we're going to do a very difficult Kahoot in the final 2 minutes of this class. Join in with your net ID. Let me full screen this. This Kahoot is going to be impossible. I am going to destroy your minds. Is anyone not in? Okay. Is anyone not in? We're going to say like 20 more seconds. You good? Okay. This Kahoot is one question, just because I need attendance. So, were you here? Just pick whatever one looks nice to you. Whichever one. Yeah. I'm actually curious to see which one is the majority. It's not that hard, guys. Just answer it. You have 4 seconds. Okay. Wow, red one, nice. Okay. That's your attendance for today. I'm not going to show the leaderboard because there's no point in that. I hope this lecture was helpful for you guys, and I really wish you the best of luck in your career searches, whether it's for internships or full-time jobs or research or whatever it is. If you guys have any questions about getting internships, me and Rohan have both done it ourselves, so we'll open the floor after the lecture because we're done right now. Make sure you're here on Thursday. Please, 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 midterm presentations. I'm very, very much looking forward to what you guys have done thus far in your projects. And with that, you have a wonderful Tuesday night.